Good day, friends. Victoria Haynes here in the Freeman farmhouse of Old Sturbridge Village, and I thought I'd talk to you about a common 1830s beverage, coffee. Coffee was a real popular beverage in the time period, mainly for breakfast. And I thought we'd start by reading a couple of the things that Lydia Maria Child has to say about coffee in her book, The American Frugal Housewife. This is the edition from 1833 I have right now. So, she starts by basically noting how popular coffee was, or at least how significant, by giving us a few substitutes if you couldn't get the beans that we associate as really being coffee. So she says, as substitutes for coffee, some use dry brown bread crust and roast them. Others soak rye grain in rum and roast it. Others roast peas in the same way as coffee. None of these are very good. Love that. She then goes on to talk about how French coffee is the most celebrated sort of coffee, and a little bit about how to go about roasting it, which I'll show you later on. But at the end, she actually adds up a little bit of advice on how you could improve the coffee you've already made. So I thought we could go through those too. So she begins with a bit of fish skin as big as a ninepence thrown into the coffee while it is boiling tends to make it very clear. If you use it just as it comes from the saltfish, it will be apt to give it an unpleasant taste to the coffee. It should be washed clean as a bit of cloth and hung up till perfectly dry. The whites of eggs, and even eggshells, are good to settle the coffee. Rind a salt pork is excellent. Some people think coffee is richer and clearer for having a bit of sweet butter, or even whole egg. I actually brought an egg today, right from our chickens, dropped in and stirred just before it is done roasting, and ground up, shell and all, with the coffee. But these things are not economical, except on a farm, luckily, where we are, where butter and eggs are plenty. A half a gill of cold water, poured in after you take your coffee pot off the fire, will usually settle the coffee. All right, so with that a bit of advice under our belts, let's move over to the hearth and start making our coffee. So today we're going to be making our coffee using a coffee roaster. So first thing we have to do is take our green coffee beans and put as many as we're going to need into the roaster. So I usually do a few good handfuls. So in order to roast it, I need there to be a burner. So I'm going to pull out some dead ash first, so I have somewhere to work on. Then I'm going to add some of these beautiful hot coals. And I want to do this over a fairly quick fire, or hot fire. So I'm going to do 2 good scoops of hot coals. All right, now I'm going to take my coffee roaster, put it in the middle of those coals, and just start turning. Now that we have our beautiful roasted coffee, we have to grind it. So there were coffee grinders in the time period, but most people don't have them. Usually, and probably like a lot of you today, the more specific a gadget's function is, the less common it's going to be. But just like a skillet, everyone has a mortar and pestle. So now that our coffee is nicely ground, we're going to start to brew it. So we're going to add our ground coffee to our coffee pot. And Mrs. Child suggests that you should put an ounce of coffee to a pint of water or less. So we're putting proportionally quite a bit of coffee in there. So I'm actually going to end up putting all of what I ground up. And now we have to set our burner back up. So now we're going to add our water. So this water is not quite boiling, but it is very hot. So I'm going to, based on the amount of grounds I have in there, fill it about halfway up. Then I'm going to put the lid on. All right, so now that about 5-10 minutes or so have passed, our coffee smells nice and good, the color looks nice, so we're gonna bring it over to the table so we can pour out a cup. All right. So following one of the pieces of Mrs. Child's advice literature, I have my egg right here. So I'm gonna crack it into this little bowl. Now, of course, I could mix in the entire egg if I wanted to, but I think I'll save the egg and have that as part of breakfast. Just add the eggshell. So I'm gonna drop that in, give it a minute or so to help settle the grounds. And then what this should do is make it so when I pour, less of the coffee grounds come out of the coffee pot. All right, let's see what we got. Well, it smells really good. Here, you have the first cup.